think we're ready. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's episode of The Grill. It's a Desoladies project that highlights women in the Dota 2 scene that contribute in various ways. This month's topic is all about team management, and we have some familiar faces as our guests. Would you like to introduce yourselves? We can start with Alyssa.
Hey, I'm Alyssa. I manage Planet Odd. I'm from California, and I've been managing them since like September of last year.
Very nice. What about you, Helen?
Hi, I'm Helen. I manage Team NP, and I became a manager since post TI6 as well.
Okay, and let's move on to Evany.
I'm Evany. Hello, and I manage OG since TI5. Yeah.
So a couple years now.
Yep.
So let's start with getting to know a little bit about where y'all started. So how did you get started being a manager for a pro team? Was it a position that you pursued, or was it kind of like a coincidental opportunity? We can start with Alyssa again.
I knew the team owner of DC at the time, Tom, and they needed a manager, and I just had a few people that were like, you know, she might be good at this. And so yeah, it coincidentally like fell into my lap. I wasn't really pursuing it, but I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, that's great. That's nice. It's very common that people tend to know each other, and it's like through recommendations, and you know, you want people that you trust to work. How about you, Helen? How did you get started in being manager?
Well, a lot of people knew me as a translator for Dota 2 events before. Several teams asked me to be a manager in the past years, but I declined all of them because it's not something that I wanted to do. And then after TI6, Envy wanted to start his new team, and he asked me if I could help. And I thought it's time for a change, so I said yes to that.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Well, I mean, I knew you were a translator, but that's interesting that it was not something that you were interested in previously. So that probably started a few new experiences that you weren't used to from switching from being a translator to a manager.
It's very different, actually.
Yeah. Okay. How about you, Evany?
Actually, I had done some interim management work for Fnatic back in between 2012 and 2014, but nothing really official. It was during my grad school years, and then after TI4, I was asked by No Tail and Kuroki to manage the first iteration of Secret. So that's how that started. I never wanted to get into management. I mean, for OG, it took like a year between Secret and OG before I committed full time. I had a full-time job, so.
Oh. Yeah, that would kind of get in the way of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So what about when you guys first started getting into management? Was there anything that surprised you about the position, or maybe that you weren't prepared for when you first started? What about you, Alyssa?
I guess for me, the biggest surprise was the amount you travel. You know, you think like, oh, we go to X amount of events, but you kind of don't think about how many travel days there are inside of an event. You know, an event's like 3 days, but if you're a team, it's like 6 to 7 days. And then there's boot camps and everything. So I've been gone so much this year. And so it was, that was probably the biggest surprise, is how much time you spend on the road.
Yeah, or in the sky.
Yeah,
Since
true.
It's very global.
Yeah.
What about you, Helen? Was there anything that you were surprised or caught off guard or not prepared for getting into managing?
I think I wasn't prepared for the amount of responsibilities I had, because previously when I went to events, it's pretty much myself. When I had to communicate about flights, it's only about myself. But then now you have to manage flights for 6 or 7 people at the same time if you have a coach. It's just a lot of communicating with organizers, and I was not expected to reply to so many emails, and I missed a lot of them at the beginning. I just couldn't deal with it. When people email you at 2, 3 a.m. because of time zone, sometimes you just can't get back to them.
Yeah, that sounds very hectic. Like something that's like a 24-hour job almost, because you want to respond really quickly and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah. Okay, what about you, Evany? Anything that, you were prepared for, caught you off guard?
I mean, I was surprised how similar it can be to teaching, which is my previous profession. Yeah, I mean, it's basically you need to learn about each person that's under your care, and it could range in quantity, and it's about learning what they need and how they respond to anything, and just making sure you're prepared for anything, which is a lot of work.
So do you have a file on each of the players and what they like and dislike and what their needs are?
A mental file, yeah.
Mental file, okay. What about the other two of you? Do you guys have to keep
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Preferences.
You gotta know. That's funny. Okay, so moving on about some more about your experiences. So as fans, Dota tournaments are, a form of high-stake entertainment that, to follow all of our favorite players. What is it like working behind the scenes of a big tournament as like the team manager compared to like being just a regular viewer watching the games? I'm sure there's a huge difference, but can you go more into like the big contrast of your experience at events? We can start with Alyssa again.
Yeah, so working an event is obviously much more stressful. When you go there as a fan, you have to worry about getting there, enjoying the games, and leaving. Sometimes you have to arrange your travel. So working is like a completely different experience. But the thing that is the most like black and white is how rewarding it is. Working for a team, when they win, it's like really exciting because you got to contribute to that success in a way. So I think in that way, it's definitely like a more hyped experience.
Yeah, because you're more like your heart's really in it.
Yeah, of course.
It's like a family.
And you get to see all their hard work that goes into this. If you're just a spectator, you can assume that they practice a lot, but really, it's so much work that goes into these performances. So when it pays off and they do well, you are just like, you're really excited. So.
What about you, Helen? What about your experiences?
The last time I went to an event as a spectator was TI2, so it's been a long time. But I think something different for me is that when I worked at events as a staff, I get to watch a lot of things on the side because I don't have to be with the team all the time. But as a manager, before the game starts, I'm actually with them. So I don't get to watch any of the intros. And, sometimes these videos are very fun to watch, and I kind of miss that. But like Alyssa said, it's very rewarding in the sense that when they win, you feel so much more. But at the same time, when they lose, you get so much more, depressed or sad after that. Because as a manager, you can't really do anything. When they're in the booth, they're in their own world. You just stand outside and you watch and you wait for results.
So you would say you're kind of like on call at events, so you don't really get to watch all the production value that goes into like the actual streaming of the event.
You still get to watch the game, but I don't think you enjoy the game as much as a regular viewer because you're so much more attached to the games.
Yeah, it's a really stressful.
And if there's a pause, you run.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a different perspective for sure. You're more emotionally attached to it, and so it's really stressful probably watching the games and standing right there waiting for it to end and to be there, to keep moving and be there for your team. What about you, Evany?
Working off what both Alyssa and Helen said, definitely a lot more emotional investment, time investment. And also the fact that, you can't do anything once they're in the booth or they're, the door's closed behind you. And when you're watching the games, you want to watch, but then you're also thinking about, what do they need after this game? Or, maybe so-and-so is hungry or so-and-so looked like, a bit pale before that game. So you're constantly thinking about these things. You're not really enjoying it as much as you could. I was talking to Dakota, Paddle guy from BTS on the recent summit, and he was saying how he missed us because we've been there quite a few times. And I said, we missed him and we missed the staff there and everything in the event, but it's nice to sit at home and be able to actually enjoy the event and actually watch the games being played. So that's something that we all kind of miss a little, and on the flip side, also, like when you're backstage and you get to see how an event is put together, it's actually quite nice. I like how Valve for TIs, they take the camera behind the scenes to show just how much goes into the production value for each event, how much work and how many people, like the workforce is actually a lot larger than people might think. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. And it's interesting to see just like you said, like how many people are working on an event that, everybody's just watching from their home on Twitch for the most part. And just to see like how much effort and like just how many cords there are laying everywhere.
Yes. There's cords everywhere.
Just everywhere. So what about being a team manager? Have there been any specific, particularly complicated or troublesome situations that you've come across as a manager, and how did you deal with it? It doesn't have to be like a ton of things, but is there anything that sticks out to you as something that was pretty difficult, but you managed to get through it, and how did you deal with it? How about Alyssa? Anything on your mind?
Oh, yes, definitely visas. Visas it's so complicated. The process of obtaining a visa is long, and there's a lot of paperwork usually, but the more complicated part of doing it when you're a team manager is, one, you're not doing it on your behalf, and then two, you're not just at home applying for this visa and waiting for your passport to come back, because you have to have your passport with you when you travel, so you can't just like ship it to an embassy and like be like, oh yeah, I'll get my passport in 2 months, it'll be fine. So yeah, getting these like really short-term visas can be super complicated. There was a situation in particular recently where we needed to do qualifiers for Epicenter. And, oh, no, I'm sorry. We wanted to boot camp for Epicenter. And we wanted to boot camp in Stockholm because we just signed a new org and they could provide us a boot camp there. And Roman has a Ukrainian passport, so he can't just go to Stockholm. And so I had like 5 days to get him this visa for this boot camp, and you look online, it's like the shortest term you can get a Shenzhen visa, which is the type of visa. It's like 14 days. So I just messaged like everyone I knew that like lived in the Shenzhen area, and I was just like, help, like, can you please, like, is there anything you can do? And actually Milton, who works with DreamHack, ended up coming through in the clutch and like getting us a letter of invitation for Roman. And he like called the embassy and sped up the process, and we actually got his visa in 4 days. So
wow,
that was really exciting.
Super clutch.
That is probably the happiest I've been in a really long time.
Yeah, that sounds super stressful.
It was, because in that moment you have to make arrangements. You have to make plan B, C through like Z, like if this visa doesn't come in time, if this visa comes in the middle of our boot camp, like have to, yeah. Anyway, it worked out though, so.
Yeah, it seems like there's just so many variables, so like you guys have to really prepare like alternate options. I didn't really think about that. Like in case plan A doesn't work, you probably also need, like you said, plan A through Z, because there's so many different things. Mm-hmm. What about you, Helen? Was there anything really tough that you had to deal with?
I'm debating between the two I had. The first scenario was similar to Alyssa's, where after qualifiers for Summit, we had to play some other event, and then we had to fly to Manila Masters, and then it was deciding between Zotac, and then we had to pull out of DreamHack. It was just a lot of things happening within those 2 weeks, and people knew that we got banned from DreamHack, so Dream League actually. So that was hard for me because I talked to Dream League, like I was the only one communicating with them, and I knew that they were upset. But a lot of times when people get upset at you, they're not necessarily upset at you. They're just upset at what's happening. And it took me a long time to get used to that, because these people are people I knew for 4 or 5 years, and it hurts me so much for them to get upset at me. And I feel like that's really hard for me to deal with, even though I know it's not like something I can control.
Yeah. So it's kind of like dealing with people's stress and like all that negative emotion from a situation, rather, and instead of trying to differentiate that from like personally at you, to just the general situation.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to accept that. And the other thing is the same as roster changes. Because since I've been on the team, we've only had one roster change. And I, like, they're my friends. Like, the former players are my friends. And I take care of them. And I'm emotionally attached to them. So when they had to leave, it was really hard for me to, like, just accept the fact that they won't be here anymore.
Oh, yeah. That's something I didn't think about. Like, that you kind of all live together and so you kind of become like a little family, and or you're around each other enough to become like a family and that they're your friends. And so with roster changes, that can bring like a lot of like just
it's hard at
sadness.
first.
Yeah.
But then you
have to
welcome
get used
your
to
new
someone
players.
new too. That's very interesting. I didn't think about that before. What about you, Evany? Any tough situations? Or maybe the toughest situation, since there's probably multiple for you guys.
Well, I mean, like Alyssa and Helen both said it. It's a lot to do with, mostly visas, because visas issues come up more frequently than we would like. And also, roster changes. It's not something that we as managers have too much of a say in. And also any sort of reasons for roster changes aren't really on our part. So it's a family that we've worked hard to take care of, and it is kind of like saying goodbye to to a family member. But aside from those, I think just generally things that extreme or out of the ordinary situations that you could run into at a tournament, things that even the admins aren't prepared for. Like, I'm trying to think, like maybe the first thing that comes to mind is maybe the Dota Pit Grand Finals this year. That 2-hour delay right in the middle. But it wasn't really on the tournament organizers' end. It wasn't anything that, obviously that the team could control. There's like server lag or something. And so in those type of extreme situations, or even Epicenter, when Yapstores had that nosebleed, it's like you can't prepare for those things. So it's kind of like working together with all parties who have their own agenda, and you know it, and you have your own agenda, but you just have to find a fair compromise without burning bridges or making enemies. But yeah, that's usually something that happens at tournaments that, again, people don't really know or see, but everybody has to be very respectful, and you're walking on very fine lines all the time. So yeah, it's a lot about relationships, actually.
Yeah, so would you say, I mean, esports is still young and growing a lot, so would you say you kind of have to tread a line between professionalism and also maintaining, like, friendships? And, like, where does that fall into, like, being the manager? Are you, like, all business all the time with organizers and anybody that you really have to interact with in the pro scene, or do you kind of find a balance between, like, being very relaxed and casual? What kind of how do you handle, like, your relationships with others?
I think I can only speak for myself, but I keep things as professional as they can be most of the time, but again, it is about relationships and building those relationships. And you can be friendly when building those relationships. But when we're at tournaments, like the media days or whatever, like the in-between days, it's usually a lot more lax. But when it's game time for everyone.
Yeah. What about you, Helen?
I think it's half-half for me, because I know so many people at tournaments. Like, every tournament I go to, the casters, the people organizing them, I'm super friendly. Like, oh, sorry. They're saying something. Like, I'm super friends with them, and I'm okay with that. But when I have to fight for something that my players need, or they want something, then they can't see your head. Anyway, like, if it's something that my players need, or something that I must fight for the team, then I keep my foot there, and I will not budge.
Tough Helen comes out. What about you, Alyssa?
It's kind of the same as Evany. You want to stay as professional as possible, so that when it comes down to it, when there's a really, like, professional situation they don't like, kind of take advantage of you, I guess, in a way. Like, you're there for business, they're there for business. You're both trying to create this, tournament. But it's one of those situations where you do have to, be friendly. You're building relationships. You have to be friendly to build relationships. And not only that, the job is kind of 24/7. So I would be very impressed if I met someone that could keep like a fully like professional face throughout the entire process. So yeah, it is a fine line, but it's easy to have a healthy mix of both. Yeah.
Okay. So what about to lighten it up a little bit, with the team, with your players on the team, are there any quirks or house rules or habits that you guys can share with us that are kind of unique to your team maybe, or that are kind of funny?
I think like at least for my team, it's kind of a tournament by tournament basis. We develop like a boot camp specific or a tournament specific habit. Like the two that come to mind the most was when Bulba was coaching us for Boston Major. He would always walk around the house with his phone playing the song like "We Don't Talk Anymore."
We don't talk anymore.
Yeah. So it kind of became like a team meme or whatever. So before all of our Boston Major matches, we would play the song like as a team and listen to it. I think for like epicenter quals, we were here at the Summit House again, and we would play some yard game. There's like 3 sticks. You throw a string with balls on it at it, try to get it to. I don't know the name.
I'm picturing it in my head, but I don't know the name.
Yeah. Anyway, we would always play that before our officials, to kind of like unwind as a team and like really let all the discussions you've had like sink in before you go and play the qualifiers. So I think, yeah.
Okay. What about you, Helen? Are there any like funny?
I mean, there used to be before Mojo ditched me. So when we first moved into this big camp, like this house, we bought Wii U and PS4, all these console games, and people would play on them. And at one point, Mojo was down to play Wii U games with me, like Mario Kart, Mario Party, and what was that one? Just Dance?
Oh, I love that game.
Yeah. Like, he was pretty good at it, too. And then at one point, he was just like, I'm done. And we never played it again. So I'm really sad about that.
Oh, no. What about you, Evany?
Unique things. I mean, the guys just play Dota most of the time. I think when we're at longer boot camps and we have access to, like a TV and all that stuff, we try to do movie nights. The guys really like movies. Recently, because of S-Force pressure, we do horror movies or creepy movies.
No!
Man.
I try to talk my way out of it, but then it doesn't work because then they do the whole "you're part of the team" spiel, and then so I have to stay.
So you find yourself
so
being
bad.
dragged into things with the team that you normally wouldn't, just because they're like, "You're one of us."
Yeah, some unique things. I mean, every boot camp we have that has a kitchen, No-Tail has to make his tomato soup.
Oh.
So I've known him quite a long time now, and so that tomato soup is usually there.
Tomato soup's pretty good though. So,
Yeah.
is his tomato soup good? That's the question?
Well, I'm not a fan of any sort of soup that has cream in it, but it's pretty good. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. If I ever need tomato soup recipe, I'll hit up No-Tail. So what about, we kind of already touched about like difficult situations that you overcome, but during your time as a team manager, have there been any accomplishments that you, maybe even if it's just a personal accomplishment or something with the team that you have been really proud of, like maybe something that you were most proud of, like any kind of growth or something you learned or anything like that? Evany, we can start with you.
Anything by what I've personally done, or just general accomplishment?
It doesn't have to necessarily be related to
nursing players to health. I think in general, just maintaining a culture of positivity and open communication in this team. I think it's a team effort, though. It's not something that I do myself. I think And maybe trying to promote healthy diet. I'm a firm believer that what you put in your body, matters. And certain boot camps, I try to cook healthier or order healthier, and then make sure that they get a good amount of sleep, a healthy amount of sleep, and try to move around instead of sitting all day. If we're at tournaments, I'll make sure that they move around between games. Some of them just like to sit, but it's not good. You guys should get up during your gaming sessions and move around.
It's easy to forget. So do you, just as a little side note, so do you find at like boot camps and whatnot, when you have a kitchen, do you tend to cook more, or do you order, like do you make a effort to like prepare meals?
Depends on where we are. So the way OG boot camps usually run is we don't actually have a team house. Rebel helps us a lot because they're so global that they help set up boot camps according to where our tournaments are. So it really depends on what's available, if there's a kitchen, and even if ordering is even possible. So if it's not, then I'll usually just cook. So then I have free reign over what they eat.
Are they usually pleased with that, or is it like, oh no, a healthy meal?
Actually, so last year's TI6 boot camp, at the very end, Crit mentioned that he had never had that much rice in his life.
Rice is life.
He's normally used to eating potatoes. I guess
yeah.
Scandinavians eat a lot more potatoes. Europeans eat a lot more potatoes that I'm normally accustomed with. So I'm trying this year to do more potatoes.
Rice is delicious, so I don't...
It is.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the perfect side with every meal. What about you, Helen, when it comes to like any accomplishments or that kind of thing?
I think it's also related to food. I think I am trained to feed a family of 6 now, 3 meals a day. So, because then we boot camp in Toronto, and I live at the boot camp house, so I have my own kitchen. I claim it as mine. So I actually like cooking during boot camps, and I try to make it as healthy as I can. But sometimes, you just can't. Sometimes you just have that craving for very greasy food, like grilled cheese,
Yes.
And then we just do grilled cheese with tomato soup.
I saw that tteokbokki that you made. You posted on Twitter the other day.
Oh.
It looked like the rice cakes. Oh my gosh, that's like my favorite Korean food. And
Is it?
My mouth just started watering. I was like, I need some tteokbokki, but I was like, my rice cakes were frozen in the freezer, and I was like, no, I need it now. What about you, Alyssa? Are there any accomplishments?
As a team, obviously, when we won Genting, that was awesome. That's such a highlight of my career with them so far. But as a personally, you grow so much in this position. You learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about how to interact with other people. So I think I'm most proud of kind of who I've become, or who I'm becoming, or my transition into this more professional person. Because when I got this job, I was right out of college, and I was like a server at a restaurant before that. So I mean, you don't learn any. That's not true. You don't not learn anything, but it's not even on the same level.
Being a server,
right?
I know that feel.
But when you become a manager, you learn to become more responsible, more attentive, more proactive, more positive, all these things. And
your food's here.
My food's here. I'll be right back.
I'll talk to them for a minute. Okay, so going along kind of with what she was saying, besides what you said about learning to cook more or be healthier or nursing players back to health, curious about situations of you nursing players back to health, but are there any other skills that you've picked up as a team manager that you didn't have before or you hadn't really practiced before?
Helen, you want to go first?
I don't know.
She looks like she's thinking.
Because I feel like most of the skills that I use right now, I already have to use them when I was a translator. Because in that event, when you're a translator, you have to take care of, when you're in China, you're taking care of the Western teams, and when you're in Western events, you have to take care of the Chinese teams. So you're half of a manager. So I don't think I have anything for this one.
Yeah. What about you, Evany?
So I'd say that maybe, yeah, I don't know. Skills. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
You're fine. Well, you said you were still in college, really, when you started getting involved. So,
Well, I mean, I was in grad school, yeah. So, so a lot of the skills, I mean, aside from just like the standard bookkeeping and management and all that, and like flights and all that, which I personally like. Just finding flights is not that hard when you have Google Flights these days. But definitely learning the visa thing, because so I'm American and our passport is rather nice to go places. So definitely learning the ins and outs of that was something, and just like, so my master's was in language education, and my previous career was teaching English as a second language, and so it's really cool to learn a lot about other cultures. Just because I'm like a huge linguistics, I guess, nerd. So, so that was, you know, just learning to interact with people from different backgrounds and different cultures was something that was really interesting to me.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And just like being able to travel around the world and see all the different like cuisines. And well, speaking of that, when you guys are at tournaments or at events, I guess it varies depending on the team performance. Do you find any time to really get out of the like venue and experience the cities or anything at all, or do you just pretty much find yourself bound to the venue and the hotel and the bus in between?
You're pretty bound, honestly. Like, I don't know. It's hard to get out and explore.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're still like in the tournament, it's almost impossible. But even when you're not in the tournament, usually the players want to, you know, watch the games, look over replays, prepare for the next tournament, because there's usually not a lot of downtime. So yeah.
Okay. Pretty much the
I
same
find
answer.
time. No, I find time. Like when I have to go eat dinner with like friends or like business dinners, I make sure that my players they have Dota, they have food, and they're happy.
Mm-hmm.
So if they need anything, they can text me. So I can find some time to go out. So it's not that bad.
Okay. What about you, Evany? Same?
No, I mean, there's this funny term, I don't know who coined it, hotel exiles. So it's, people think this job is glamorous, you get to travel the world, and in actuality, most of the times what we're doing is what Alyssa said, you know, you see the inside of hotels and inside of venues. But I guess I'm in between. Some places I make the time, I try to make the time to just do a quick run out and see the stuff and then run back. But only if it's...
But you're running, not walking.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And only when, you know, the players are taken care of or looked after, and I know that they're, you know, just, they got nothing that they need from me.
Yeah, you have to kind of be creative, you know, like if you're going and getting food, you know, you're like, oh, I could order, or I could walk.
Just swing by.
Yeah, you know, and you get to see a little bit of the city. It's nice.
Yeah. What about, sorry, did you have something else?
I was going to say, yeah, people do over-glamorize it, you know, like, oh, going to all these interesting places, but you do get to experience the culture, so that is cool. Just because you don't get to go and see the, you know, the sites or anything, you get to like interact with the people there and kind of witness the culture, and that's exciting. So
yeah. What about so in your casual time when you're not at an event, do you guys have any hobbies, or do you play lots of Dota, or are you just thinking about the next tournament and preparing for the next tournament?
What's casual time? Me personally, I recently started going to the gym with the players because, you know, Will and Roman are super like gym buffs, so I kind of picked up that hobby. But other than that, it's just kind of a lot of relaxing when I go home or catching up with friends. I go and eat out a lot. Because yeah, the time you have like to yourself back home away from the job is pretty small. So, you know, I guess it's it's pretty mild.
Do you get tired
pretty
of
mild
Dota?
life?
Or like
Oh
just
yeah,
see it all the time?
I can't play that much when I'm at home. Like maybe I'll grind like a few days, but it's not a thing.
Yeah. What about you, Helen?
I play a lot of Dota, I think. Way too much. But there really isn't downtime because after you fly back from an event, because our team would scrim online, so you would get a day or two of breaks and then you would have to get back to scheduling scrims. So we don't really have long breaks until after TI, I think. So I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. Do you have any plans? Going to go on a trip or anything, or just going to enjoy the time off?
I don't know. Jackie Mao already said he doesn't want to travel anywhere in Asia, so.
All right, well, that's a huge continent that's off limits.
Yeah.
What about you, Evany?
Yeah, there's not much downtime at all. I think my downtime is when I'm flying home. So, yeah, that's the thing about managing is that you have to be kind of available all the time. And so then you have to really be strict with yourself and disciplined on when you give others your time. So there are days where I keep my phone on silent and it doesn't always work out for the whole day. I tell myself that in the morning, but it doesn't happen. But yeah, like when managers are home, you know, and the players are maybe taking a couple of days of rest or just pubbing instead of scrimming, you know, managers are already thinking about the next event or like Helen said, scheduling scrims and you know, you're organizing, you know, flights for the next event, blah, blah, blah. So there's not much downtime for much else. But I do enjoy working out, and sadly, one of my hobbies is also traveling, which, like, if you're traveling all the time and then you're just too tired to do your other hobby, which is traveling. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so going that kind of leads into like the next question is like if someone's interested in getting into being a manager or working with a team in a capacity where they're traveling with them and whatnot, how much time would you say someone should expect to dedicate to, you know, being involved with the team and anything responsibilities along with that, whether it's at an event or in a lull time in between events? Start with Alyssa.
I guess if you want to manage a tier 1 team or like teams that go to many tournaments, it's a 24-hour job. Like it's a full-time job plus some. You know, you like Evany was saying, you always have to be available for anything that comes up. And even when you go to a tournament, as soon as you come back and there's that, like, you know, week, sometimes 2-week breaks before you go to another boot camp or prepare for another tournament, it's spent, you know, organizing finances from the previous boot camp or previous event and planning the next ones, talking with organizers. It's really, it never like goes off. So I think, yeah, I'd say definitely you can't do this and have another job, and give it as much attention as it deserves and needs.
What about you, Helen? Pretty much all of you are kind of nodding.
Totally agree with that.
Everybody's in agreement. 24/7 job.
I tried the double. Didn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
Yeah, Charlie was telling me about like his early manager days, how he was like still in law school or something, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. So, Evany, just a quick question. So you said you were still in grad school. So did you try to also work a job and manage a team after that, or was it just
so
team?
I was in grad school when I was doing that, you know, one-off type of like contractual work here and there for Fnatic, and then when Secret started, I was teaching full-time and managing, but then that was short-lived. And then with OG, I also was teaching at the start, and then I'd made the very hard decision to leave my job for this. But I'm glad that it paid off.
Yeah,
so
that's
it was
jump
worth
to
it.
take. Yeah, I'm sure that was nerve-wracking to switch.
It was a reluctant switch, but yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about, like we were kind of talking about giving advice to anybody who might be interested in getting involved with teams. What would you say are The most important traits or characteristics of someone who would be an effective team manager, in your opinion? Alyssa?
I would say you need to be attentive, and you need to be hardworking, and you need to be proactive. And they all kind of go hand in hand. But I'd say like you need to be attentive because you need to, read a situation and realize like, oh, X player is, like Evany was saying, like looking a little pale, or they said they were like kind of hungry, or, they haven't eaten in 4 hours, and they like in tournaments, forget to eat sometimes. And you need to be proactive because there will be situations that come up that you can't prepare for, like a nosebleed or something like that. But a lot of the little hiccups are avoidable if you kind of, make plan A through Z. So you just have to be very proactive in your planning. So yeah, I'd say that those are the two biggest ones.
Okay.
And then you obviously have to be hardworking because it takes a lot of like dedication to do this job because it is so demanding, both time and mental wise. So.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Helen?
I think you have to care either about the game or about the players that you're working with, because if you don't care, you won't last in this job. Like, you just won't take it. During the early stages, you need to put a lot of time building those connections, because a lot of people have asked me, how do you get into esports? And it's not as simple as you send in an application and you'll get it. Most of the time, for these kind of positions and positions at tournament organizers or at events, you need a recommendation. So you need to build that connection. It's not something that you can get overnight. So if you don't really care, or if you think the job is cool and you want to try it out, you probably won't last. So I think you need to have passion and willing to invest time into this.
Yeah, that's a very important point that I guess people don't really think about. What about you, Evany?
I think what Helen said is very important because it sets you apart from just a team manager to an effective team manager. Is that drive and also caring about what you do. I mean, you could have the best time management and visa skills in the world, but I mean, you're not going to get up in the middle of the night, the way that Phil does for Sumail. Like, if you don't actually care, you could be like, I'll do it in the morning, but it's not gonna. If you actually care, you're gonna go that extra 10 miles, not just 1 mile.
Yeah.
Oh, he needs 10 miles for his visas.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I do not envy what Phil has to do.
With the visas, this is something I was thinking about. Do you have to? Did you guys have to really learn like the laws of the lands, or does it depend on which country? About like, are their websites pretty clear about what they need, or do you find yourself having to go down to like the offices and talk to someone every time, or do you handle it mostly online or over the phone? Or I'm sure it's really
I think
complicated.
The difficulty level depends on the country. And
Yeah.
in some countries, their websites are actually pretty awful. Some websites, they're pretty clear. So I think it just varies, and you just don't know until you encounter a tournament with a specific relation to one of your players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've been pretty lucky though with my team's passports, because we have mostly North Americans and Europeans, so we don't have like some of the harder to deal with countries.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Ukraine.
would be really. Yeah.
Though Ukraine just got approved for Shenzhen free travel, so that I'm really excited for when that kicks in.
Nice.
So, wow.
Make your job
Yeah.
a little bit easier.
A lot easier, actually.
Nice. That's always good to hear. Okay, so we're getting close to wrapping up. I had one more question, which is kind of a fun question. But what are each of your favorite heroes to play in Dota? Or what's your favorite role in hero to play?
Oh, this.
It's a hard question, but
I mean, it depends on the server, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Server matters.
Yeah,
okay,
it really
fine.
does.
On the on the North American servers, since that's kind of where we're based.
All right. For the Americas, I farm, I jungle, and I get my Midas travels, and I will not come out to fight until I'm ready.
Nice. Greedy. I like it. What about you, Alyssa?
I usually like to play the heroes that kind of just like throw themselves at the other people, cause confusion. Usually like roaming supports are my thing. I'm a big spirit breaker enthusiast.
Yeah. That space cow.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, it's just super hype. You're just like charging across the map, and you're like, "Are you ready, guys?"
Your hands
guys-
off the
I'm coming.
keyboard.
That's
I'm
the
almost
best part too. Is when you got some chips, you're going to town on some jelly beans, you know. charging across the
Hands
map.
off.
Yeah.
That's great. What about you, Evany?
I think it depends, flavor of the month, and also the patch. But recently, I mean, usually it ends up being a support because I don't get to play much, and when I do, I try to play with Fly, and he gets tired of playing supports because he's always playing support.
Yeah.
So yay, I get to play support. But recently, I have the new Coddle set, so I'm spamming Coddle.
That
And
Pegasus
aside from
is
that,
awesome.
yes, it is a beautiful set. I like Undying a lot, and Ogre. A lot.
Ogre is fun.
But Undying, I get into the role, and I start making, like, according to Fly, I make these zombie noises. So
I love his voice lines.
I
It's like,
can't-
I need gummy vitamins.
I can't do it like on my own, but when I'm playing Undying, it just comes out.
That's so cute. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you all so much for coming onto the show, and we talked a lot, and I think we got a lot of interesting perspectives that people don't usually get because people are usually focused on the players and not the people that are carrying the team. So do you guys have any final words or any other social media or any shout-outs that you want to make before we call it a night? Alyssa?
I guess I'll.
Oh, I mean, my personal Twitter, I'm sure, is somewhere.
Yeah, we've got it below.
On the, yeah, I mean, you can follow my team's Twitter at Planet Odd Esport. It's too short to have the S, so Esport. And we're trying to become more active there. You know, with these boot camps and tournaments, we're trying to create more content. So if you follow there, you can follow our team, and it'll be exciting.
Okay, cool. What about you, Helen?
No, not much. Like, just follow me on Twitter if you really want to. But I post a lot of food pictures, so if you don't like that, please
10
don't.
out of 10 Twitter, in my opinion.
I mean, if you ever, I mean, I'm not sure if you guys play PUBG lately, but if you're watching this and you queue into me, don't shoot me, please.
What about you, Evany?
Yeah, I'm like the OG Dota 2 is on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We don't do Snapchat. And then myself, I'm on Twitter and Instagram. Feel free. It's more food than some people would enjoy.
Man, I don't know what's wrong with them. Food's the
I
best.
know, right?
All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the show. We'll have another episode next month. We'll not announce it yet because we haven't confirmed our guests, but keep an eye out on the Desoladies Twitter at Desoladies. We also have all the other social media, and we will also upload this episode onto our Twitch and our YouTube, so please check that out if you know couldn't find it earlier or couldn't finish the show, which they're probably not watching right now if they couldn't finish it, but you know. Anyways, but thanks so much, and see you next time.